On this All Souls Day, where we commemorate those who have passed on into the next life, I decided that I would like to speak with you on the most mysterious and wonderful topic of death and dying. And we'll do that just in a few minutes. Right, death. Death in the Bible is not a cessation of existence. It's a diminished existence. When God told Adam that the day you take from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, he said, you shall surely die. But they didn't really die in a cessation of existence and go into the ground. They lived a diminished existence, and that's what death is. They live a mortal life of dying and living in a mortal frame that will one day just shrivel up. And so that means, dear brothers and sisters, that the life that we are experiencing here in some way, shape, or form is really a life of death. We're death creatures, and that's how scriptures explain our existence right now. Isn't that what Paul is saying? He's saying that this life is full of groaning. How many people have groaned just getting up out of bed today? Right? It's a time of growing. And do you know my definition of aging is? Aging is a horror show in slow motion. Now that might seem funny, but I think it's true. I just think it's true. And if we spend our lives looking in a mirror and watching each wrinkle come, we're going to be terrified of death, right? That's not what God has asked us to do, to be terrified of death. No. As the Old Testament reading says, is that their hope, your hope, is full of immortality. That's what you have within you. And in the New Testament, it's not just a hope, and hope is important. It's a confident expectation that we will be resurrected in the next life, but it's a knowledge of the power of Jesus. Look what he did in the gospel today. He has the power of life. And we live with that. And if our hope is full of immortality, our life here on earth must be filled with purpose. Because you're here for a purpose. And when you have tapped into your vocation as believers, then you don't sit around worrying about death. You don't keep on looking in that mirror and just become aghast until you try to paint yourself up so you're presentable and hide the inevitable, because that's not your calling. Your calling is actually to make a difference in this world, dear brothers and sisters. If you don't have a sense of vocation and calling, and you're all worried about death and what have you, just come, talk to Father Andrew, myself, Deacon, Joe, because that's what we do here. This church is what we do here is help you with your vocation. Okay, so death really, in the end, is no, you don't think about it. It's not a big deal, right? Okay, so I could say a whole lot more about that, but I want to get into the dying, some practical things, okay? Even though death is no big deal, and death is going to actually bring us into glory, which we have lost, we should really take deep thought about your dying and your death, okay? First of all, and this is for young and old too, because when the old are passing away, sometimes, and the families, they're afraid to ask the priest to come. Because the priest walks in and they say, oh no, last rites, I'm dying. Yes, you are dying. That's why you need to be awake, okay? Before you go into the twilight, you should be awake and experience the grace of the sacrament of viaticum. And it's a beautiful thing when the whole family is around and this is experienced. And you can hear the apostolic pardon and bring your life to an end. Too many times, my dear brothers and sisters, none of this is thought out. It's not. And so, we have to administer last rites to an unconscious person. Okay. Secondly, you really need to write out your will, okay? A living will. I'm not going to get into that because we don't have time, but you find out what a living will is, and you give on paper your desires for end-of-life issues. And of course, the only thing I'll say here for sure is euthanasia is out of the question for Catholics, right? And so those are some of the practical things you need to do. But you also need to write out, I would plan your funeral. This is not morbid, dear brothers and sisters. Plan out what you would like so that you're not leaving your relatives to guess about what you would like. You see, plan that out. And the church says that you should have your body here at a requiem mass. Because even though this body is mortal, it is fundamentally important to the church because it says that you're going to raise in the likeness of what you are. People are going to recognize you. You might say, well, I hope I'm prettier, I'm more handsome. You will be, because you'll be the glorious version of what you are. Okay? But that is connected to who you are in the body. We have to respect the body. And a requiem mass is a beautiful thing because at a requiem mass, we as a church family gather around and we offer our loved one to God. I love doing funerals for older folk who pass on, who live a godly life. You might say, oh, Father John, you have to do funerals. I'm sorry, I love them. I look forward to them because they are a moment of joy. Really, because we celebrate the life of that person. And I'll tell you what, this is important. So many of their children and grandchildren are no longer in the church. And this gives them the opportunity to understand why they love their loved ones so much. And that we can evangelize through the Mass. It's hugely important. Okay? Now, if there's a cremation, that should be done after this requiem Mass. And if there's a cremation, you don't put Uncle Harry on your mantle in your living room, okay? You got that? It should go in a sacred place, okay? A sacred burial ground in the cemetery or in a columbarium. We have a columbarium over there, and there's spaces left, okay? So there are other things that we need to talk about, but we don't have time because we have a lot of things to do today. But please, if you have questions about any of this stuff, come to us and we'll talk you through them. Very important, okay? We have no reason to dread death. We don't. because it's going to bring us the glory that we all long for. Now, having said that, I would like, Jeremy, I'm not sure how this is going to fit in at all to what you've got to say. It probably doesn't, but this is one of the challenges of being a priest. You're going to have to figure that out. Come on up, please, and talk to us.
Good morning. Those who may not know me, as Father said, my name is Jeremy Belk. I've been a seminarian at the Archdiocese of Baltimore for the past 8 years. And I just want to share a little part of my story, my vocation story, with you this morning, the moment that God called me to the priesthood. And when I was 17 years old, I was working in Connecticut as a sacristan. And the priests there heard that I was thinking about the priesthood, that I had really a long time desire for it. And they and my family and friends kept encouraging me, saying, Jeremy, you have these qualities in you that would make a good priest. And so they said, keep taking it to prayer, keep thinking about this, don't just push it aside. So I heeded their advice, and I took it explicitly to prayer. And I asked God, what do you want me to do with my life? Do you want me to be your priest? And as I was making that prayer, there was so much just pressure, anxiety, confusion. But I knew deep down in my heart that one of the strongest desires of my heart was to do what God wanted me to do what he was calling me to. And that brought immense peace. And in that moment, I heard a yes. And I said, all right, let's do this. Let's go. But saying yes to God wasn't easy. I've had to continue to say yes over and over again throughout my years in formation for the priesthood. And really, formation of the priesthood is not just about study. It is about an ongoing configuration of my heart to the heart of the high priest, Jesus, so that I can be a shepherd to all of you, to guide everyone to be saints, to grow closer to Christ and to know him. The priestly vocation is ultimately about getting everyone to eternal life. But this hope cannot be realized without your support, your help. Each seminarian's tuition costs over $42,000 a year, and we in our Archdiocese of Baltimore are blessed with over 60 seminarians, which means that our annual amounts to about $2.8 million every year. In addition, we have a high school school vocation retreat called Quo Vadis, and I was actually in charge of recreation for that last year, and it was just a blast. It was a lot of fun. And we had over 100 young men in attendance at that retreat. And that retreat has an annual cost of $75,000. And this is an investment not just in our vocations, but really in the future of our church and her priests and the priests to come who will serve you and your families. And we could not fulfill this call to our vocation without your prayers and generosity to people like you. Your support makes our formation possible and truly actually makes you a part of our vocation story. It was the people around me, it was the encouragement of those around me that disposed me to be able to say yes to God in that moment. So in conclusion, I would ask you to please continue to pray for many, many more vocations to the Archdiocese of Baltimore. In addition to those prayers, please consider supporting my vocation and those of my brother seminarians through our second collection today. But most importantly, thank you for making my vocation to the priesthood a reality. May God bless you and keep you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.